Alrighty, this is just going to be a short video on the technique we want to use on an equipped bench. Now, of course, there's going to be variation from lifter to lifter, but this will be largely I'm going to go over some common principles, and this won't be too dissimilar from a raw bench. Now, let's go ahead and start. You're going to see me take a max legal grip. Now, this is something pretty much every single equipped bencher does to maybe probably no surprise to any of you, it is hard to bring the bar to the chest. So you want to reduce that range of motion as much as possible, even if it is slightly worse from a power generation perspective compared on your raw bench, for example. You will be served greatly by reducing range of motion in the equipped press. You'll see people can hit some pretty huge numbers in a shirt to a two board to a one board, but touching your chest is a different game always. When I was benching 235 to the chest, I could probably wear some super tight shirt, and I did. I wore a super tight shirt and I benched 600. So, getting what 80 pounds from a two board and a little bit tighter of a shirt. So it's really important to understand that we want to be reducing range of motion and really trying to get a clean touch. So here you go. I set the max legal grip. You'll see me walk my feet up, push my hips up in the air, and I'm really trying to get on the tippy top of the traps. I think this clip also shows that really well. Just let it reload. Now, this is illegal to do these days. You cannot put your feet on the bench when setting up, but I thought this is a really great example of just how much effort I'm trying to spend on getting really, really high up on the traps. Again, reducing range of motion, making even an inch has such a huge effect in the shirt. Let's go back to this one over here. You will see me keep my hips high as I unrack the bar. So again, all the weight is being placed on the traps. There's virtually none in my hamstrings, glutes, or anywhere. It is just my heels, toes, and shoulders. Now, I unrack the bar. I keep my wrist cocked back slightly. This is going to depend on how heavy of a bencher you are. I found when I was going to around that 265, 275 area, 600 pounds, I had to actually try and keep my wrist straight because the load was so heavy. However, when I'm playing with sub 500 pounds, I find I have to be somewhat conscious of keeping the wrists in extension. We don't want the bar high in the hands towards the fingers. However, we do want the wrist in slight extension. This will allow for the bar to naturally go towards the head as we press. During the equipped press, because the shirt is tight, it's going to force you to tuck your elbows, leading to a lower touch point. Again, this is going to depend on how tight of a shirt you're using, so I wouldn't focus too much on the wrist extension, but it is something to keep in mind. Now, on the eccentric, you're going to see this. It'll happen pretty fast, and that's my intention when I'm benching. The first half of the range of motion, if you intend on touching this weight to your chest, I don't understand why someone would take a long time to get down to a two board or a one board. Just like in a raw bench or raw squat or anything, the longer you spend on the eccentric means the more energy you're going to expend needlessly. We want to be moving as fast as possible while staying in control. The same goes for a raw squat or raw bench, any exercise. When we're talking about performance, we want to be moving as fast as possible under control. So you'll see me get to a one board pretty quick here. There we go, down to a two, down to a one, and now you'll see me try and really touch cleanly. There we go. Pressing back, straighten it out, hold it, rack. This sort of goes into my next comment. Here you're seeing me do a little board combo with some bands or whatever, but again, wrists in slight extension. I'm trying to come down as fast as possible, really pushing through the toes. You'll see me use a wide stance. That is for the lateral stabilization of the weight. However, you can use a narrow stance. I'm sure the Swedish lifters, Norwegian lifters, there are some awesome bench pressers who do use a narrower stance. I've found this comfortable for myself, so Stance width is up to you. The way I'm benching, you will see actually, perhaps you can see it here, my entire body will shift back and forth while I'm pressing. Again, the idea is because I'm touching so low, because it is a tight shirt, if the feet are wide and slightly either perpendicular or slightly in front, it will help me shift the weight back as I'm pressing. Let's see if we can see it here. There we go. You can see my body shifting back. There we go. Maybe even here as well. Ooh, I can't fast forward. All right, you got to watch this entire thing, I suppose. Hopefully you can fast forward on the YouTube video. So you'll see that max legal grip coming out. I'm trying to touch high, pressing back, butt does hover. I will not deny that. That actually is a great example as to how little tension there is on the butt. All the tension is here and on my toes. Just if you pay attention to my butt or legs, you'll see how strongly I shift back here. So it looks like my butt is in line with this flower over here. And there we go. So you'll see it shifted roughly a couple inches. That is sort of all there really is to the shirt. Now, this seems simple, but in practice, you will notice that the shirt is going to try and cave you down. It's going to try and collapse your arch. You have to be very, very, very intentional on keeping strong leg drive throughout the movement. You have to be intentional on keeping strong leg drive as you place your feet down, or however you set up these days. For me, I kind of slide around, but as I'm unracking the bar, all the weight, even these days, all the weight is still on my traps and going through my toes here. When I'm coming down, a lot of people think that they should be tucking their elbows, tuck, tuck, tuck. That is, I would argue, that is not what you actually want to be doing. You want to be keeping the elbows out as much as possible to stretch the chest plate. If you remember in the last video I mentioned, the chest plate stores all of the potential energy. So I get the unrack here, and even though, yes, I do end up in a tucked position, I'm actually thinking of stretching this out. I'm trying to build tension around here. The weight, if you want to think of it, is I'm trying to push my elbows out. And it's only if I think I'm going to get stuck do I tuck my elbows and correspondingly touch lower on the chest. So again, a pretty low touch point, but I'm trying to touch as high as possible. And I mentioned this yesterday in the how to wear the shirt, the knobs and all that stuff. If I start pulling on the sides of the shirt here, or in the front, or wear my collar lower, you can see how high all this stuff is. If I start monkeying with that, I will touch too low. Maybe it's just my leverages, the way my arms are, but I will end up dumping the touch, and it will make the press extremely hard. And actually, that's how I think this one looked. Yeah, I pulled too much on the sides of the shirt and the front, so you'll see when I go to touch here, wrists are also probably a little too straight. The feet are good, perpendicular for the most part. And you can see how little tension there will be in the hamstrings. You'll see them shaking, actually. That's because they are so relaxed, and all the tension is through my toes and quads. But anyway, I get down to here, I come down, and right there is the dump, and you're going to see that is at a negative angle. It's not perpendicular. My forearm is not perpendicular or slightly back, and the result is that I got to kind of reverse curl it up, and it's a big struggle. And that's why this weight, 210, was harder than 215 the preceding week. Same thing here. I think that was a good one. I think this was a poor one as well, this 195. I'm just giving examples of myself because I know which reps I've screwed up here. I think that is all there is really to it. Keeping tension through the quads on the unrack, keeping the wrists in extension. You'll see here I dump this one as well, kind of misgroove halfway down, and you'll see that angle of the forearm is going this way instead of straight up and down. And that results in that kind of reverse curl motion. I fix it and I lock it out comparatively to the 205, where you'll see this touch slightly higher. And there we go. So that is the beauty of an equipped press, in my opinion, is that if you make a small correction, you will be rewarded greatly. The wrists are a nice extension. The shin is nice and perpendicular as far as I can tell. I did a great job on the unrack, keeping the hips high, all attention in the shoulders and the toes. Elbows out, do not dump to the touch. That's all I got. Keeping the wrists in extension, trying to keep the elbows out. You will also notice the first time you get in a shirt, it will be hard to get your elbows out on the unrack. Try your best. Really shove your elbows out on the unrack as much as possible. It's going to be trying to keep you in a tucked position, especially for those lifters in their home gyms. You need to try as hard as you can to keep your elbows out. That'll allow you to unrack with tension in the upper back. And from there, tension in the toes, tension in the quads. The hamstrings and glutes are loose, keeping the elbows out. A fast eccentric here, down to a two board, nail a touch. From here, it's just back, and then straight up. There we go. Alrighty. Hope that makes sense. If anyone has any questions, let me know.